Good evening, everyone, my friends, and huge thanks for joining us on this lovely Friday evening. Today's first Facebook Live interview will be all about how to hack your pain.
Hi everyone. The ones who don't know us, I am Lina. I'm a personal trainer and FDN practitioner.
And I am Martin Kumm, and I'm actually a chiropractor from Basel, Switzerland.
And we are two people who have more questions than answers in their professional lives. And our plan is to travel the world, visit the best healthcare experts, and get the answers and share these with you via Facebook Live interviews.
Yes, and when you're watching us throughout this one or the future Facebook Lives, you'll see the comments. You can ask a question there, or if you have a friend who you think they should be watching this, add a name in the comment and they will have direct access to this live feed. Or if they can't watch it during the live, they will see it after it's finished and it's reproduced, so they will see it afterwards. Yes, so every comment, help and share is highly appreciated.
I think it's time to get the ball rolling.
I agree with you completely. So here we go.
Hi. We are so happy to welcome our very first experts on board with us. So, welcome Pat Partington.
Welcome. So, Pat was my lecturer in ACC for 4 years. And when he kind of got this ball rolling and this idea going, I was like, I want to really start with this subject because pain is so important for so many levels. And he will explain it so much better later on why it's so important. But for me, it was like key. If we will start with this. And I want to start with Pat. And I cannot say how happy I am to have you on board, that you agreed actually to this. Because, it's the first time for you also to be in this setting like this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thanks again for being here, to sharing your knowledge. And if you give us a little origin story.
Okay. So in terms of my background, I've got 27 years experience in the health and fitness industry. And that goes all the way back to, when I was much younger. I was a fitness instructor, personal trainer. Then I turned my attention to so-called special populations. So patients were sent to me who had chronic pain, but diabetes, heart disease, that sort of thing. And so I was designing fitness programs, exercise programs, lifestyle regimes for these people. And it was great, but I kind of came to realise that even the greatest program is worthless if we can't get people to maintain their new behaviours. So that's when I kind of became interested in psychology. Finished with a PhD in health psychology, looking specifically at people who had experienced a heart attack and the kind of the processes that they went through to adhere to their new lifestyles, and particularly to their new exercise programs. And so from that kind of very practical way of working, I went to the AECC, where I spent 9 years there developing their psychology program. I brought in motivational interviewing into that program. I brought in cognitive behavioural therapy, communication skills training, that sort of thing. I left there 2 years ago, and I've set up my own company since then, training and development company in behaviour change, in motivational interviewing, CBT, and one of the things, the main thing that I specialise in is pain psychology. And obviously that's what I'm here to talk to you about today.
Absolutely. I think you also had some history with sports, right?
Yeah. My background then is in boxing, and I've boxed for maybe 10 years and at a decent level. But
So you do actually know quite a lot about pain, right?
I know quite a lot about pain, yeah. But pain as a boxer is slightly different to pain that you get in lots of other kind of areas of life, I suppose. Because when you're boxing, you never get hurt while you're boxing. So if a boxer talks about being hurt, you see on television the commentator will say, "Oh, he's hurt." That doesn't mean that boxer's feeling physical pain. It means it is his head scrambled.
Is that because the adrenaline is going up, or?
Exactly, yeah. There's all sorts of factors that are kind of happening in the heat of battle, shall we say. So you never feel pain afterwards. Then you kind of realise, afterwards you think about it, and so you can feel the bruises more, you can see the damage to your hands, that kind of thing, and then they can start to hurt. But that's something that we'll look at today actually. That's when you start to think about it and bring some meaning to it in many ways, I suppose.
Now, did you watch the match a few weeks ago? McGregor against Mayweather?
Yeah.
What do you think about the match?
It was a complete circus, and I can't believe that so many people got conned into spending all that money to watch it. But it was an event.
Hey, but how did you watch it then?
I didn't watch it.
Oh, you didn't watch it?
I didn't watch it live. No, I watched it on YouTube the next day. But it was an event. McGregor did fantastically well. You can't take anything away from him. And good luck to him. He's earned an awful lot of money from it.
But I guess the winner from this was the PR team.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, the two boxers, because they made hundreds of millions of pounds
True.
from that. But it just goes to show how important marketing is in everything, because that fight was marketed well. Yeah.
But to some degree, it was also interesting to see this match, because they put together very different things, and then two personalities, boxer styles, but you could see one is a boxer and the other one is
exactly
kind of.
And he was taking him on at boxing. If it was mixed martial arts, then there would have only been one winner. But that wasn't the case.
So he had some balls, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Fair play to him.
Good, but it's not only.
We kind of dig in to pain, and I can see you really want to talk about pain and sports. That's cool, but I want to ask one question before. We are going to ask that to all our experts, and this is: what means optimal performance for you?
Well, I'm here to talk about pain, and so what I'll explain today is the way that very often the brain doesn't agree with the body, and so I think optimal performance in terms of pain management and pain control is in getting the brain to agree with the body and produce an amount of pain that's kind of in line with the amount of physical damage that the body has. So the level of the injury matches the amount of pain that you have. Because very often with acute pain, short-term pain, that's exactly what does happen. But with chronic pain, chronic pain is a different animal altogether, and that rarely happens. And so optimal performance in the context of what we're talking about today is, and in the second half of this, I'll talk to you about how we can get the brain to agree with the body more easily and turn down the volume of pain.
Yeah, I don't turn down the volume for the mic. We are already tuned in for that. That sounds really, really interesting, and that's exactly what we're here for. So, yeah, I guess for everyone it has a different the meaning, and that's kind of how it should be. Good. I think it's my time now to open with the real question. So what we're gonna do actually is Pat has prepared a little PowerPoint presentation. So he will go through the presentation to explain the basics of pain and human psychology and how the body and mind works together. And then from there we come back. And then if you have any questions, just shoot them away. I'll see the questions and we will ask these. And otherwise, we will keep rolling with our ideas and our questions. And we kind of do the presentation now, and then we go from there. So the next 5 or so minutes, we'll cover the basics, and then we go from there. So the $1 million question, Pat: what is pain?
Pain, in its simplest form, I suppose. Then we can understand pain as an alarm. And so it's a warning alarm, and it tells us that there's something wrong with the body. But the most important thing about pain then is that it motivates behaviour. Nothing motivates like pain. And so it motivates our behaviour to stop the pain. So if we put our hand over a flame, obviously pain tells us, get your hand out of the flame. And that's very straightforward. And that burning of your hand over the flame, that's acute pain. It's a system though, it's an alarm system that with chronic pain, in a way you can think of it as a faulty alarm system, because the amount of pain that lots of people experience, and I use the word experience purposely because pain is an experience, it isn't just a sensation. But the amount of pain that people experience who have chronic conditions kind of doesn't have to be that much pain. So there are all sorts of techniques that we can use to, even for people who, they're going to have to learn to manage their condition, then we can help them to have pain, but not as much pain as they might be having at the moment, for example. So all pain can be, the volume of pain can be turned up and it can be turned down. And so when you talk about hacking your pain, then that's really what we're talking about. These techniques that we can use to turn the pain volume down a little bit and bring back a little bit of quality of life for people that have to live with pain.
So I think actually you already touched briefly quite two very important parts, which is acute and chronic pain.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times people get hang on they don't grasp the essence of difference of these.
Yeah. I mean, the word chronic kind of we tend to think of it as bad, really bad, chronic pain. But as you know, chronic means long term, and the pain levels can be much lower than acute pain. I mean, neither acute or chronic kind of relate to the pain level, but usually acute pain is more painful. The sensation is worse, if you like, but it's shorter. By definition, chronic pain is something that lasts for more than 3 months. Or a better definition is that it lasts beyond the point of expected healing, and that normally is 3 months. So that's chronic pain. And like I say, it's a completely different animal to acute pain. The problem is that most people, doctors, chiropractors, healthcare professionals generally, they try to treat chronic pain in exactly the same way as they treat acute pain. And sometimes it can have an effectiveness, but it's not the best. It's not the most evidence-based way of working with chronic pain.
So I guess we go now into your presentation. Shall we do that?
A short presentation.
Shall we do that?
Yeah.
And then we come back from there.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah. Okay.
So feel free to go shoot.
Okay. So as a pain psychologist, then there's a bit of a problem because when we put the words pain with psychology, we tend to come to the conclusion, well, most people do anyway, that pain psychology must mean then that this is all in my mind, or this is not real pain. And the thing about this is that people aren't kind of ready to accept this, because pain is such a physical thing. You feel it so strongly. There must be the pain generator must be in my body. And you can understand how that would make sense. And so what we have is a biomedical approach to treating pain. And that means really that we find the pain generator in the body, we fix it, we put it right, and then the pain should stop. And so this is the kind of, as I say, we tend to treat chronic pain in the same way as acute pain, because this works perfectly well for acute pain. Works perfectly for acute pain. Find what's wrong in the body, put it right, and then your pain will go away. But this biomedical model isn't very good at explaining chronic pain. And so we know, hundreds of studies have been done now that show us that we can scan the bodies of people who have no pain, and we'll always find, or 90% of the time, we'll find abnormalities on those scans that should be producing pain. By the same token, we can scan the bodies of people who have pain, and the scan data will show us nothing that's kind of corresponding to the amount of pain that that person has. The International Association for the Study of Pain say that we can have pain in the absence of tissue damage, and we can have tissue damage in the absence of pain. So when you ask me what is pain, you know, a one-word answer to that could be, or two words actually, it's complicated. Yeah, pain is very complicated. And this is a great frustration for not just people who have pain, but for those of us who are working in helping people to manage their pain. And so what we have now then is a model that's called the biopsychosocial model of pain. And so obviously this includes the bio, because the body is really important. The pain generator in the body still has to be located and worked on. Nobody could argue with that. But what this does now is it brings in the psycho. So it brings in the brain, it brings in the mind, it brings in beliefs and thoughts and attitudes, all of which we know impact upon the level of pain that people have. It also brings in the brain kind of more neurologically in terms of neuroplasticity, because when someone develops chronic pain, then their brain literally changes neuroplastically to accommodate that pain. And we'll see how that works in a moment. There's also the social component of pain. And this means that when we have pain, we interact with people, we talk to people about our pain, we do certain things, we avoid certain things. So the environment that we work in, that we live in, that we inhabit, is a big factor and has a big impact on the amount of pain that a person is feeling. So, you know, we can talk to lots of doctors and they'll say, yeah, an evidence-based approach is to use a biopsychosocial approach to pain management. But they'd be hard-pressed to actually tell you, to explain to you how they're accommodating the psychological part of pain control and the social part of pain control, much beyond reassurance. Now, reassurance is really effective. So if we can reassure people, then that's a psychological intervention in itself. The problem is that people with chronic pain, they're notoriously difficult to reassure, and therein really lies the problem with this. So if we
if I quickly ask you, for example, it's so difficult for if you're talking about the chronic pain, right? It's so difficult to work with these people, because they are already so downward exactly, spiral, and they have no motivation for pretty much for nothing.
Yeah.
That's what I see also in a clinical setting now. Is working 4 years with patients. Is like you can do something, but there's an amount of patients you already see from they walk in the door. You know that there's no way you can do, even if you can change the physical structure how it moves. Yeah. But there is so much things going on up in the brain, which is in a higher cortical level, which you cannot do anything about. And this is why it's like, if you have 10, 15 or 20 or 30 minutes to work with the patients, it's pretty much impossible to work on those two aspects and get any of the results.
Yeah. Well, today I'm going to show you that it's not impossible. And you know, the thing about this is that most undergraduate courses, medical courses, chiropractic, osteopathy, so it involves psychology, but I actually think that psychology is more important. Understanding a biopsychosocial approach is more important as a postgraduate learning, if you like, because as you know, Martin, there's so much to learn while you're learning to be a chiropractor, learning to be a doctor. There's so much going on in the body, the nervous system, histopathology, you know, all these things, all these ologies that you have to learn. And so when we teach people how to communicate, it's seen as a bit of a lesser thing. You know, what's important is what's going on in the body. And not only that, it's too much to think about. So when you're learning, when you have your first patients in the clinic, and you're you're thinking about what's going wrong with the body, what's happening here, to then think about how do I communicate with somebody, to then think about how do I explain pain to them, to think about how can I use CBT with them, and on all these evidence-based approaches, I think is a little bit too much. And so learning this stuff is easier once you've got into a routine, as you have now with years of practice, years of routine of working with your patients.
And you actually also mentioned that when we read your book, then Martin said, "Oh, I finally completely get it."
Yeah.
In the college, I was kind of
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, we studied it for years, but as a person who never had any pain besides doing sports and hurting one's muscle or but I never had a pain, so it's so difficult to understand what can one think or feel who has pain constant time or like all the time, and that's why I think now once you're in a practice you start to see things it's way different, because the only thing what you see and hear is pain.
Yeah, exactly. And people say things to you, and I'll look at some real life quotes in a moment. People say things to you that if I stand up in a lecture to undergraduates and I say the pain patient says this, you can see the students sat there thinking, do they really? That seems like a
it's always this question, is it really like this? Because, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on.
And then when
it's
you
like,
get out there,
pull yourself together.
The amount of people that I've bumped into or that have emailed me after they've graduated, and they've said to me then, everything that you said makes perfect sense to me now.
Yeah.
Didn't make so much sense to me, even though you were quite entertaining and I enjoyed your lectures, you know. You know, it didn't make so much sense to me, but now it makes perfect sense. And
but if we now reverse this and look at it from the patient's point of view, how do they see that? I see it from a clinician point of view, but I cannot put myself in a patient's point of view. How do they see that?
Yeah. Well, patients are working on this biomedical model the same way as everybody else is, you know, and so they fully believe that the pain generator is in my body, and to start with, it is in the body. But actually, the only pain generator that we have, pain generator, is the brain, because your body produces information. So and then, as we'll see in a moment, it sends signals to the brain. And this is where this kind of agreement between the brain and the body comes in. Well, so if patients understand, in a very simple way that I'm going to explain pain in a moment, if they understand pain in this way, then they also understand that it isn't just about what's happening in my body. So there's another option for treatment. So there's more hope for me to be treated. Good research has shown that just explaining pain to people in a biopsychosocial model,
but when you do that,
is therapy.
But when you do that, they get the answer I get is I know. Okay, I know. I get it. I know.
Yeah.
And then,
but putting this into practice is obviously. I mean, them putting this into practice. Yeah. And again, I'll show you in the kind of the second half of this presentation. Them putting this into practice is easier when they understand this information. So
absolutely.
So do you say to people that the way you think about your pain is a big contributory factor to the amount of pain that you have? I mean, do you say that? Do you explain that to people? Your thoughts?
At times, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And what do they say?
The most often answer is like, yeah, I get that. I just want to get rid of the pain.
Yeah, they don't get it yet.
They don't get it.
But they don't get it.
They don't get it. No.
The main thing is like, I get it. But that moment you already know they're not getting, and then this is this barrier. I sometimes it's impossible to get through.
Yeah, because the problem there is that the patients have taken on the identity of somebody with pain. It's become a part of who they are. And when I showed the kind of the social part of pain, then it's how people talk to them. How are you today? You know? And they expect you to talk about your pain. They know that you have pain. You're a person with pain. And for them to, it isn't an identity that they want. They want to get rid of it. But it's an identity that's kind of familiar to them. And so when they say, I understand that, I just want to get rid of this pain, they really don't understand it. And until you do something with them, they won't understand it. So explaining pain in itself is therapeutic, but then having them engage with the things that you're doing, such as the cognitive restructuring that we'll do in a moment. Once they engage with it and put it into practice and see that, I can turn down the level of my pain, so I can take control of my pain, then kind of everything becomes clearer to them, I suppose. But it has to be said chronic pain patients, if there's anyone out there watching and you're a chronic pain patient, you know, they are difficult to work with. But they don't have to become difficult patients.
No, not necessarily. No, I'm not saying
and
that.
that's what lots of physiotherapists and doctors, they say, I've got a really difficult patient, never does as they're told. I think I've got a magic wand and I can wave it around and just magic them better, you know. And so when we have a difficult patient, our body language changes, the tone that we speak to someone changes, all very subtle changes that are going on just below the level of consciousness for that patient. And when you have a difficult patient, you talk to them in a certain way, they talk back to you in a certain way, and kind of your therapeutic alliance, which is your working relationship, kind of becomes fractured. And then, you know, one of the most important things that you can develop with a chronic pain patient is a working relationship, you know, of mutual respect. That's kind of patient-centered.
Yeah,
but I'm going off on on different.
No, that's cool.
Now.
So I think you were talking about pain output is not only in the brain, right?
Well, the kind of saying now then comes from Mosley's the kind of biggest proponent of it. Mosley's a research. He leads up a research team in Australia into pain psychology and the pain experience really. But the pain neuromatrix was devised, if you like, thought of by Ron Malzak. You know, much longer ago than 2003. But this saying has come to be the kind of the emblem of the biopsychosocial model, and that is that pain is an output of the brain that's produced whenever the brain concludes that body tissue is in danger and action is required. And so, okay, look, it's an output of the brain because it's an experience, and this experience has lots of aspects to it. And all of these aspects are being processed in the brain. And it's produced whenever the brain concludes that body tissue is in danger. Now, the brain can come to this conclusion in all sorts of ways. And so the context of a person's life is really important. Because that determines the conclusion that the brain makes. You know, so this if you ever go to a lecture on pain psychology, I'll bet you that because this is from the abstract, this will be kind of churned out in every single lecture. But you have to understand what this is all about, because what a lot of people just say, so pain's coming out of your brain. Your brain is all to do, pain is all to do with your brain. That's not really what this is saying. It's saying the way that I see it is that pain is an agreement between the body and the brain. Mm-hmm. It's not all about the brain, which lots of people will try to have you believe, and it's not all about the body. Because if it was, then scan data would be accurate all the time, but it isn't. It would always match people's levels of pain, but it doesn't, you know. And so, what we'll look at is how the brain concludes that body tissue is in danger. And so if we take low back pain, which is really common, then we have the pain generator down in the lower back, and then we have the actual pain generator, if you like, which is the brain. So the body then sends a message up to the brain, and we can think of this as a damage report. So in this damage report is where the injury is, how much pain the body thinks you should be producing for this, if that makes sense. So it's a damage report. Now your brain then can agree with this damage report and produce lots of pain, or it can disagree with this damage report and produce no pain. Because your brain and your body are working together. It has to be an agreement between the two, but your brain has the final say is probably the best way of thinking about this. Now, your brain receiving a damage report from the body that says, lots of damage here, let's have lots of pain, but disagreeing with it and saying, no, I'm not going to produce pain, that's not much of a problem for you, because you're not going to see this clinically, are you? So no one's going to go to the doctor and say, look, I've got a prolapse at kind of hour 5. I haven't got any pain, you know, but do you think you could help me out here? Nobody does that. Pain is the thing that takes people to the doctor, to the chiropractor.
It could be a good thing.
So pain is actually a good thing.
It's a good thing, yeah, of course it is. Yeah, absolutely. Pain gets you to all doctors, there's some research recently that shows that of something like is it 80%, something, I forget what the exact percentage is, but most doctors' visits, nurse visits, any visit to any healthcare professional comes because of pain. I think the next biggest one is a skin condition. You know, so it's a big motivator. Pain's a motivator. We don't want to live with pain. We want to get rid of it. You know, and so clinically though, what you're going to see is people, as you said, people with low mood, anxiety, depression, frustration, guilt. They're going to be thinking things like, yeah, what if I have to take more time off work? Like I did last time I had low back pain. This pain's never going to end. I've tried everything. These are typical thoughts that people have. So even if a damage report then says this is low level pain, your brain is going to produce a high level of pain because your brain has changed to accommodate pain. And the behaviour from that will be to avoid the things that cause you pain. So this is where your brain is not agreeing with your body and producing too much pain for you. Because we know that chronic pain is more about the psychosocial aspects of pain. Acute pain is much more about the bio of what's happening in your body. Okay, so if we look at this in a slightly different psychological perspective, and we can look at a pain schema. So what's a schema? Well, a schema is a cognitive structure. So it's a mental framework, and it helps us to organise information, but it also helps us to filter information, because there's a lot of information out there that we can take in with all of our senses. All this sensory information gets sent to the brain, and our body has to make a world for us out of it. And so it has to filter lots of information. And so we have schemas for everything that we do on a daily basis, really. So, for example, if you go to a leisure centre, you know to look for the reception because you have a schema for leisure centres. You have a schema for restaurants. You have a schema for everything that you do. So in terms of personal interaction, you have a schema for talking to an interviewer, for talking to a friend or a colleague or a policeman. You know, you have schemas. You know exactly what to do.
You would say it's the same as patterns?
It's a pattern. This is exactly what it is. Yeah, it's a pattern in the brain. We're not born with these patterns. We learn them. Obviously, you know, if you present someone with lots of these things, if they've had no previous experience with them, they wouldn't know what to do. Wouldn't know what to make of them, would they? So what a schema does is it provides us with a script. Most of the time, it's a thinking and doing script. Where's the reception? I'll look for it. I'll go to reception. I'll buy a ticket, kind of thing. You know, for example, a phobia, then it's a thinking, feeling, doing script. So if I'm scared of spiders, I come across a spider, I know exactly what to do. I run away if I'm scared of spiders. I get fear motivates me to move, I run away, then I think, oh, I hate spiders. So then I think about it. Spiders are horrible things, whoever invented them, you know, that kind of thing. So our schema provides us with a thinking, feeling, doing script for responding, and it has to be really quick as well. We haven't got time to stop and think about these things, you know, particularly if it has survival value to us. So what happens then, the best way to explain, to understand it in a way, is that when we come across a stimulus, either in our environment or in our body, our brain does a Google. It says, what is this like? And as we'll see in a moment, the schema that gets returned at the top is the one that's most important to you, so it's most salient to you as a saliency effect, but there's also a recency effect. So the schema that you used most recently will also make its way to the top. And that's really important for the second part of this when we look at the kind of the therapeutic approach. So information comes up from the body, then hits a structure called the thalamus. The thalamus has to make a decision, where do I send this information off to? And so it sends it off to the different regions of the brain where thoughts are being processed, where emotions are being processed, where behaviours are being mobilised, and then and that gives us this pattern of responding. So this is a person's pain schema, their way of responding to pain. And then the more they do this, the more often these regions of the brain become accustomed to communicating with each other. And neuroplasticity tells us that pathways are made between these regions of the brain, such that what you're left with is a circuit in the brain. And this is a pain circuit, also known as the neuromatrix.
Exactly. So I guess the brain cannot differentiate this is a good pattern or bad pattern.
No, it can't. No.
So,
But once it learns it, and it has survival value, which a pain circuit does, it wants to keep it.
Yeah.
It wants to maintain it.
Yeah.
And that's why chronic pain is so difficult to treat, because you're just working on one aspect of this pain experience, nociception, the damage report.
And what do you mean is what is nociception?
Nociception means nociception is pain information, if you like. No, you have nociceptive nerve endings, nociceptive nerves, don't you, to pick up pain information.
Yep.
Sends information off to the brain, and then your brain determines whether you have pain and how much pain you should have, and for how long pain should last. You know, these are decisions made by your brain. And so when we look at this statement again, then this is all about pain neuromatrix theory. But we can use neuromatrix theory, as the title suggests there, to treat people with chronic pain. Not only chronic pain, but injured athletes. You know, so an injured athlete will have the same kind of thoughts. How long will I be off training for? How long is this going to last? How much of my skills am I going to lose from having this time out? How are people going to respond to me when I get back into training, when I get back into competition? What are they going to think of me? You know, so these thoughts are just, and the emotions, the frustration, the anger, all sorts of anxiety, all the emotions that you can have as an athlete who's itching to get back, but pain is stopping them. And that way of thinking, that kind of structure, that circuit in the brain, is ensuring that your pain lasts for longer than it really should. I worked with a footballer some years ago, and he'd broken his foot, but and it healed, you know, and all the X-rays, everything showed your foot's healed, but he's still getting lots of pain in his foot just from walking. But there was nothing there. There's no kind of pain generator in the foot, and that's because, you know, if you focus on your feet, which is what he was doing, when you walk, you'll be aware of all sorts of sensations in your feet. And what's happening is that information is going up into the brain, and your brain is interpreting it as pain. It's firing up the pain neuromatrix, the output of which is pain. And so even though he was completely, his foot was completely healed, his brain continued to protect him, even though he didn't need protecting in actual fact, did he? Protect him by producing pain for him.
So the only solution there is to cut the foot.
Lop it off,
Chop it off.
That's what we did, and he's fine now.
Perfect, awesome.
No, but we did some CBT with him, and and he's fine.
CBT or take the foot off.
So CBT is cognitive behavioural therapy.
Cognitive behavioural therapy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So basically, it's helping people to change the way they think about things and change what they do in pain situations. So that's kind of the first half of this presentation. So this talks about so what I've talked about is how pain happens, if you like, and how we can explain pain to our patients. So we can say to them, look, your body doesn't produce pain. The only part of your body that produces pain is your brain. This isn't good news for lots of people, because then that kind of makes, as I said at the beginning, you're saying it's all in my mind. No, it's imaginary pain. No, it isn't. Pain is an agreement between your brain and your body. People kind of intuitively, I suppose, understand that when they feel down, when they feel sad, their pain is worse. There's lots of survey research has been done on this as well. So it's not a kind of a giant leap of faith to have them make the connection that actually your brain has got something to do with your pain. Then, if when you feel sad, frustrated, angry, your pain levels go up, well, your brain has something to do with your pain.
But why do we need all these like sensations and feelings and emotions and these things? I know it's maybe a little bit abstract question, but sometimes it's like there is too many of things to deal with.
It is, I know. But the key player is emotion.
Yeah.
one of the other things that I do is I'm a psychotherapist, and so I use CBT and I use hypnotherapy for people that have depression, anxiety, all these kind of things as well. And so emotion is the key, because the basis of CBT is that if we can change the way that we think, we'll change the way that we feel. But this comes from the 60s and the 70s. Newer research tells us that what happens now is emotions come first, and then we think about it. Mm-hmm. Emotions drive behaviour.
Is that like a reflex?
It's not so much. I mean, in the moment, it's a reflex.
That's what I mean. It's like,
but I mean, the emotion happens very quickly.
Yeah.
The
and then the response
immediate.
you get is also
The response you have is an immediate response, but we have higher cognitive centres, don't we? So we can think about this, and in thinking about it, again, therein lies the problem, because we can make things much worse than they really are. And one of the things that I'm going to talk about in a moment is that when we have pain, we're looking at the world through pain-tinted glasses. Well, when we have anxiety, we're looking at the world through anxiety-tinted glasses, and it distorts everything that's coming in. It distorts our world when we're anxious, when we have depression. So emotions are important because they keep us safe. In evolutionary terms, they've driven our behaviours.
This is something we also learn, or because some people are more emotional than others. Is it something we learn throughout our life?
I would say that some people have stronger emotional responses, and that stronger emotional response has been learned, I would say. Mm-hmm. But we're all born with the ability to have these emotions, and then as we go through life, we attach objects to these emotions. And so we're all born with the ability to have fear. If we have a fear of spiders, we're not born with it, but then we attach the spider to the fear. Mm-hmm. As we're growing up, it's really important those kind of early years, because that's when we're making associations in our brain with objects, with people, with situations, and these emotions that we have. So emotions are the kind of are the driver of everything, of all experience.
Right, shall we carry on?
Yeah.
And I think people really want to know how to then help yourself. Yeah. So we were talking about the CBT. Is that something that lasts a long time? Is this something you need, months, years to do, or is it something you can?
No, it's very quick.
So, would you say the first thing actually is to accept the situation? Yeah. I see this is the hardest part of everything we kind of want to do.
It is. And that's the part that doesn't come so easily, I think, for people to accept that they have pain. And some people will say, yeah, I accept that I have pain. But what they mean is I'm resigned to having pain. That's not the same thing. Accepting pain is saying that even though I have pain, I'll do all of these things. I'll get on with life. Because...
So if you accept, then you take control, right?
Exactly. That's the kind of.
But it's so easy not to take the control, because then you have all these emotional people around you who will kind of keep carrying you.
Yeah, and it's easy to give control of pain to your healthcare provider as well.
Yes.
Here's my body.
Because the patients want you to fix them. They don't want to fix themselves, right?
That's right. Yeah. Because they don't see that they have any part to play in this fixing, to be honest. And so once we explain pain to people, that, as I say, a damage report comes up and your brain then decides, depending on the context that you're in, if, the way you're thinking, the emotions that you have, depending on that context, your brain decides how much pain you have, or whether you have pain or not at all, should I say, So that's because I'm not going to talk about CBT, the whole of CBT. It would just take too long.
Then
I'm going to take.
We're going to spend the whole trip, 6 months. We will spend here in this room doing CBT, which is like I know it's a perfect thing. It works a lot. Treat. So feel free to carry on.
I'll take one part of that. So we'll look at that now. Okay, so let's look at this googling brain then. So your brain kind of gets the sensation in my back. And it looks for a response. It looks for a schema. And so it could be, herewegoagain.com. So you stop what you're doing, you go home from work, and then you think a certain way, you have certain emotions. It's programmed in because you've got a schema for it. And so, as I said before, there's a saliency effect and there's a recency effect. So the schema that has most salient, so most emotional value to you.
Sorry, what is saliency?
Importance.
Okay.
So if something is salient, it's important, but it's important to you. It's a salient point.
Okay.
For example. But in terms of pain, it's all about emotional importance, survival value more than anything else. So there's a saliency effect and there's a recency effect. The thing that you did most recently, you're more likely to do again. So in terms of the Googling brain, that's more likely to be returned at the top of your kind of hit list, if you like. And you'll always use the one that's on top. You ain't got time to scroll through and see what else is available. You're going to go, it's not so much I'm feeling lucky as I'm taking no chances. This is it. This is what I'm going to do. And then so information comes up into your brain, and at that point where it hits your thalamus, that's where you're doing your Google. And so you keep doing this, a circuit gets laid down in your brain, and then your brain, because your brain's Googling all the time, isn't it? So if you have low back pain, if you bend over, another damage report's being sent up. You stand up, another damage report's being sent up. You walk, another damage report's being sent up. This information is being sent up to your brain all the time. And if your thoughts are in place, then, initially, the thoughts and emotions come as a consequence of pain. But after a while, pain comes as a consequence of your thoughts and emotions. And that's a really important way of looking at this. So we get into a habit of thinking in a certain way. It's called a cognitive processing style. And then we see in the world through these pain-tinted glasses. And so we think like this all the time. We have this emotion all of the time. An information report comes up from the body, goes into your brain, and so pain then becomes the consequence. It didn't lead the thoughts led the pain. And so what we can do is work on our search engine optimization.
Very fancy, yeah, I like that, yes.
The pain engine, so we can recreate our pain experience, and then get it to the top of our kind of hit list. So that when our brain does a Google, it isn't herewegoagain.com comes up, it's pain.com comes up, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so if you look at the pain schema, so there are thoughts in our schema, there's emotions, behaviours, and there's nociception. So this is the damage report. Medical people talk of nociception, don't they? So body doctors work on this. They work on nociception. They work on the body, on the damage report from the body. But look, emotions are a legitimate target of treatment for persistent pain. Thoughts are a legitimate target. Changing behaviours, a legitimate target. Behavioural therapy was around long before cognitive therapy for chronic pain patients. And so all of these are targets. And so if we change one or two of these, then we're changing the structure of the neural matrix in the brain, such that when a damage report comes up, we're creating a structure in the brain that matches the information from this damage report. So your brain then starts to agree with your body and produces a level of pain that's appropriate. So CBT hypnosis has got a long history because hypnosis changes the brain, changes perception. Pain is a perception. It's not just a sensation, it's a perception. It's a thinking, feeling, doing experience. And so we're looking at the world through these pain-tinted glasses. Consequently, we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. We don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. And you hear the expression, looking at the world through rose-tinted glasses. Well, that's when you're happy about everything and the world's a wonderful place and everybody should have a pair of those glasses. But most of the time, we have lots of different tints to our glasses. And these tints can change depending on the situation. About an hour ago, the tint in my glasses was very nervous, and but that comes and goes. Lots of people have that tint all the time. It's distorting their world all the time, and that makes it a very kind of difficult place for them to live. And so because of this, because we see things the way that we are, not the way they are, we have cognitive distortions, which are characterised by thinking errors, mistakes in thinking. And we can restructure those thoughts. So just quickly then, we identify the problematic thinking patterns. And patients do this for themselves as well. So once we explain it to them, you know, if a chiropractor or a doctor wants to use a cognitive behavioural approach, what they do is they teach them, and then the patient goes away and does it, and then comes back with the work that they've done over the kind of the week that's in between. You just need to spend a couple of minutes on, and it could even be while you're treating them, on going back through this information, this work that they've done, and so you can work with their body at the same time as you're working with their mind. It's not an add-on, it's an also, once you know what you're doing. So what we do is we challenge them and change them into realistic alternatives. But then importantly, and a lot of people miss this, a lot of people in CBT even miss this, we need to frame them positively. So we use positive words as much as anything else. Because the word pain itself fires up the pain neuromatrix. The word agony fires up the pain neuromatrix. You know, all these negative words increase the volume of a person's pain. So when someone says this pain's never going to end, what's the point of trying? What if I have to take more time off work? Why does my body keep letting me down? I must be really weak. And this is something that an athlete might think as well. My body's letting me down. Right, so we know that these are a part of the pain problem. These are turning up the volume of a person's pain, thinking like this. But these thoughts match their emotions. So they're thinking like this. So yeah, this pain's never going to end. So we could then change this to, I've got to stop thinking this pain will never end. But when you say that, you get something called cognitive rebound. You know, right now, don't think of a blue tree.
Hard.
Yeah, there's blue trees everywhere. Well, and what you're saying is, well, stop thinking this pain will never end. You're saying this pain will never end to yourself.
You're still saying it, right?
So you're
same thing. It's just different.
Exactly the same. Yeah. So what you could say then is, right, this will run its course. I'm able to control how well I feel.
So again, it's the word control, rather.
Exactly. Yeah.
Rather than stop doing it.
And it's lovely and positive, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, I can control it. Yeah. And this will run its course. It will take as long as it takes. That's an acceptance.
But not giving up. It's
exactly.
acceptance.
Yeah. Accepting that. Yeah. This is the way I am at the moment, and in this moment, I can kind of survive. I can do the things that I want to do. Because too many people. It sounds like we're blaming people. I've had a sciatic problem for a year myself. You know, everybody thought it was really funny. You know, pain psychologist, you've got a sciatic problem. Yeah, of course I've got a sciatic problem. Of course I've got pain because I've got a very healthy brain that's working to protect me. I had techniques that I could use to manage the pain, but yeah, I still had pain. And everyone used to have great fun in saying, it's all in your head, Pat. No, it's not what I'm saying. You know, so instead of, what if I have to take more time off work? You might say, well, I'm sure I won't have to take time off work. But you're saying take time off work still. Yeah, so counterintuitive. What you could say is this will take as long as it takes. I'm able to be patient. And this new way of thinking has to come from the patient as well. It's not something that we impose on them. You know, stop thinking that.
So they have to figure out the sentences
they
keep telling.
And this is the work that they do in between you seeing them on one session and then seeing them the next week for the next session. Okay, my body isn't letting me down, I'm not weak. While you're saying body let me down, weak again. And so we can change that to my body is working well to protect me. I'm able to be strong. And it's important that we frame these as well in terms of possibilities. So I'm able to be strong. Because if you say to yourself, I'm strong, I'm patient, and really you're not, then you're lying to yourself. So if you say, I'm able to be patient, well, in this moment, you might not be feeling too patient, but what you're saying is, I'm able to be patient. So when it happens...
you shouldn't use words like, I must.
No, exactly.
That's a black and white, right?
Yeah, no one likes to be told what to do, especially even by yourself. You know, so that's a big.
But we really want to force ourselves to do things.
This is it, isn't it? Yeah. Now, if CBT is going to fall down anywhere, it will be where you're in the moment with the pain, and then you start saying these positive thoughts to yourself, but you can't believe them because your emotion won't allow you to believe them, and this damn pain won't allow you to believe them. So if you look back, you're in pain. I'm going forward, am I? You're in pain. Hang on. Let's go back through this. So
it's a quick recap.
Yeah,
It's easy to do. Yeah, I remember that. I got that. I got that one.
Right, so so the pain that we have at that time, in that moment, won't allow us to believe these new thoughts. So what we have to do is change the way that we feel very quickly. And so there are techniques. I've probably gone too far. That's it. Yeah. So a thought can't become a belief until it matches our emotion, and that's a fact, because we can say lots of positive things to ourselves when we feel anxious or when we feel scared, but we can't have two competing emotions in our body. The stronger one will always swallow up the weaker one. It's called reciprocal inhibition. And so what we need is a technique that we can use to change the way that we feel very quickly, so we can move from anxiety to confidence very quickly, and then we say our positive thoughts. So when we say our positive thoughts quickly while we're feeling good, we believe them much more easily then. And so there are techniques from hypnosis, from NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and to a lesser degree from CBT itself that we can use. And you can find all of this information on my website, Training Great Minds as well. There's lots more information about this on my website. But we need something to help us change our emotions quickly. Otherwise, we're just not going to believe ourselves, you know. And so, so we're just going back to the brain that Googles again. Sensation in my back. So pain, what pain comes up at the top. Saliency, the more we do this, the more we have a recency effect. So if we do this every day, there's a recency effect. We did it, and so, you know, it kind of becomes self-perpetuating, and then we encourage our brain to agree with our body. That's the basis of all of this. Have I gone on a little bit?
Yeah, I think we're definitely having fun here. We're definitely having fun here. Did we cover the main things, what you had in mind?
But the key point is that, you know, talking can be done while you're treating. While you're treating the body, you can talk. And it could be about what did you do at the weekend and all those things, but it could be more therapeutic. So it could be how kind of targeting people's motivations. It could be about helping people to change the way they think about things. So that their brain, the context that they're kind of living their lives in, alters, and as a consequence of that, the pain neural matrix in their brain is changed as well.
Good.
But what about sports? I have one question.
Yeah.
If you have to tolerate pain, this is something you have to do long term to get the good result in your sport.
Yeah.
How to do that?
But when it comes to pain, we tend to get what we expect, and so what you might find is lots of athletes are using the word pain a lot. Fires up the pain neural matrix, you know. And so a lot of the self-talk that we have isn't necessarily framed in a positive way. It could very easily be framed negatively. So I'm not going to let this pain get in my way. You know, that's not the same as a more positively framed way of thinking about things. And so it could just be that we're actually in trying to force ourselves along and to force ourselves through the pain barrier, as people call it. It could be that we're doing ourselves more damage. We're turning up the volume of pain. A much better way for a sportsman is to try to distract yourself from pain. It's a short-term effect, if you like, but to think more about positives. For sports, that's what you want. For chronic pain, you can't distract your whole life from chronic pain. You know, but for sports, you certainly can distract yourself. I
think in sports it's also important to. I find it's really hard. Like if you do something, to go into this. It's the first moment of when you go into pain. Once you're in the pain, you can suffer. But this level, this first small step to go in there. And I think this is really difficult to sometimes to force yourself, right? Yeah.
But that word you said there, suffer. You avoid those words.
Okay. Yeah.
If you say to yourself,
but you know, in sports,
I don't have to suffer. Yeah, not so
I'm able to.
I can be confident.
This.
Yeah, but like in sports, I know if I do something in a high level. I have to be willing to suffer in this moment.
Yeah, but then
and
I accept it.
And now I accepted this, and I know this, and it's in my control. My control. But what is hard sometimes is to go into this mode.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And you know, experienced athletes will know what works best for them, because there's no one model that works for everybody. And CBT works for most people, but it won't work for everybody. when it doesn't work, it's mainly because people kind of won't take some, and that sounds as if we're blaming them again. Now, this isn't about anything to do with blame. They don't feel able to take on the kind of this therapeutic approach. This therapeutic approach doesn't work for them, and that's fine. Yeah, and we have to accept that. We can't kind of not every single person that comes to us can we help. We have to say that sometimes we have to say, well,
I think that's kind of like
need a different
kind of
approach.
like what we started with, is that the first has to be the acceptance from the patient side, or
Exactly,
from the
yeah.
person's side. And
Yeah.
this is also like kind of why we want to do this project the way we're doing it, is like to spread this word and help people understanding it, because it's a lot of it. This is they think they know, but they still don't know. And the first moment is the acceptance, and then you start doing steps to find solutions to yourself. Right,
Yeah.
and these are always. I know it's hardest. The first thing is always the hardest is to take the first step, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But once you get these knowledge over the next 10 months or so, you have different inputs, from so many experts around the world. Then you can separate the different what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Different ideas, right?
Yeah,
you don't have to believe what we say. You have to find.
Yeah, you have to figure things out.
That's for you.
But the first thing is accept the situation, but it doesn't mean you have to give up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah,
Work for it.
And this won't happen overnight though. No one's going to overcome their chronic pain in a week, from one cognitive reconstruction session, just from doing it themselves for a week. This is going to take a little while, but CBT, a course of CBT is about 8 sessions, about 8 weeks. So if you think about it like that, it's
a very short time, considering you can suffer with this pain
Another suffer word, huh?
Yeah, we like this word a lot.
Well, I guess it's kind of time to wrap this thing up.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have something else in your mind, or you delivered your message? I think we definitely delivered the message what we kind of wanted, and the idea was. You have any more questions? Anything?
I'm good.
You good?
Yes.
Right. So guys, thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget, on Sunday we will continue the trip in UK. We go back to London. Actually, today we're in Coastport, which is close to Portsmouth. We drive back to London tomorrow, and on Sunday at 1:30 we will have interview with Joel Broskovic. We will talk about lower back biomechanics, and this is gonna be similar principles but completely different field, because now we're gonna take the biomechanics, and we go into biomechanics rather than working on a mind and the body. We will go more into a body structure, and then over these 2 sessions what we have this weekend, you can put these things together, and it should make a lot of sense what's happening in your body as a first step. This is a great way to get yourself going. So Sunday 1:30, Joel Broskovic.
Something.
Did you?
We had to do selfie.
I don't think we have it. You have a phone here? Yeah, let's do the selfie. Yes. Yeah, that should do.
Yeah.
So who had the longest arms?
Martin's definitely got the longest arms, I think.
So, kind of need to come here. Awesome.
So done.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, and see you all on Sunday. Thanks for watching, and thanks Pat for your input. Pleasure. I hope you had fun.
Thank you so much.
You had fun? Calm down now. Good.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye bye.